Good evening. I'd like to call this 6 o'clock special called school board meeting for the Bedford County Public Schools to order. Ms. Johnson, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Kirby,
Here.
Mr. Hill,
Here.
Mrs. Hairston,
Here.
Mr. Holbrook,
Here.
Dr. Mealy,
Here.
Mr. Nelms.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Before we go to the approval for the agenda, I just want to take a second to say happy birthday to our IT guru, Mr. Sexton. We appreciate all you do for us.
Happy birthday.
Birthday.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion by Dr. Mealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll go straight into the interviews. The candidates are listed in alphabetical order with no favoritism showed in any way. We'll start off with Mr. Daniels. Sorry, Barry, I just realized it was your wife's birthday. Happy birthday to Melissa. And then we'll catch you later.
There's a birthday in the house. Close enough.
That's right, it's all good.
Hi.
Hi, how are you, Mr. Daniels?
How's it going?
Okay. The board is going to ask you 6 questions.
Okay.
Everyone has been assigned a different question.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're asked that you give us your best possible answer to those
Okay.
questions,
Great.
okay? First question for yours will be from Dr. Mealy.
Hey, Mr. Daniels, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
If you're appointed, what past experiences do you believe have prepared you to serve as a school board member? And please be specific.
You know, one of the things that I started out, I lived in New Jersey, and I spent my entire life in public schools, K through 12, my brother and my sister. My mom and dad were very involved with school board and of course, in our lives. So I understand how growing up in the public schools is. I understand the challenges that there are. But I loved everything about my public school career. Growing up where I did, we were in a very diverse community. So we had friends from all races and religions, and it was just, I couldn't ask for a better way to have grown up. So I want to use that experience here. You know, my kids have always been in public school. They're twins. My one son's a freshman, my other son is a sophomore. So I understand then on the parent side how that's been, throughout their whole career and their school career, which they've started out in Raleigh, and then they were in Lynchburg, and now here in Bedford County. My business experience, I think, would also benefit the board. I've understood, I started out making subs and have worked my way up, but I've been able to teach and coach and mentor thousands of employees, people all the way up to multi-unit franchisees at this point now. We understand from what we do, we make subs, but we really serve people. And the biggest thing that we try to do is make a difference in people's lives every day. And that's, we're supposed to be giving of ourselves, of our time, and if we can, of our money. But it's also important that we're good stewards to each other. And I think that's another thing that I've been taught. Also with business experience, I understand, profitability and looking at budgets and understanding that sometimes there are very tough decisions that need to be made. But we have to make sure that we do the best that we can with the money that we have. We have to be good stewards of that money as well. So I think overall, I think it's pretty well-rounded, my experience. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. I'm going to rely on everybody around the table and people in the community. My job will be not to know everything, but to get as much information as I can so that I can make the best decision that we can for the community.
Thank you.
Mr. Holbrook?
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
What issues do you believe the Bedford County School Board needs to address with regard to our academic offerings to students, and is there a program of special interest to you?
As far as the offerings, I think that, I think that it's important for every child in the community, no matter what school that they're going to have an equal chance to experience the same classes. Whether there's a class that's offered here that's not offered in another school, I think we need to try to find good solutions to how can we get those kids to have the same experience. And that I think goes for everything. I think that if we have a standard that we're setting for every school's got to get to that standard. Every school's got to have the same has got to have the same offerings and the same opportunities for school. So I know there's a primary school in District 7 that does not have a gym. So what do we do for those kids when it rains and stuff? So they're at a disadvantage. So I think that if we have a bottom line set of standards that we have for our schools, that means every school's got to at least get to that standard. My son has special needs. My one son has special needs. So as far as that goes, that holds a very special place in my heart. I understand how it's been since he's been in kindergarten to go to IEP meetings and to A, have to fight for your child, but B, I think it's very scary early on not knowing exactly what to ask for. So it really needs to be the teachers, the aides, guidance counselors, everybody around the table pulling together. So I want to work definitely with special needs on what's working and what else can we do. But for new parents, I think it's really scary because again, like I said, they don't know exactly what services that they could be entitled to, or B, they should be pushing for. In my experience with my son with special needs programs, especially here, he goes to JF. His teachers have been great, and one thing that I've always asked for, and I love having that great relationship with teachers, is if you ask them to do something that they think is the best interest in your child, and they're willing to do that for you. So my one son will always try to get away with something, and I said, look, if he can do something, his job is to be able to do it. So you have to hold him accountable, and you have to pull him along and get him to do that. And they do that without question. They meet his needs, they do push him, or I would say they do pull him along, so that he can be the best he can be, and then as he gets older, contribute to society. So I would say special needs is highly important. Sports is also something that I grew up playing sports. So I played high school baseball. Couldn't play basketball. We didn't have a hockey team, so baseball was what it was for me. So I definitely like seeing good sports programs. I think that's important because sports teaches us a lot of different things. It teaches us how to be great teammates. It teaches us how to work together. It teaches leadership. It teaches you how to win. It also teaches you how to lose, too. And I think that's important, too, because you need all of those skills to deal with life. So.
Mr. Nelms?
Thank you for coming. All right, what is a school board member's role and responsibility, and how does that differ from that of a superintendent?
I think that the superintendent's job is really to be involved in all of the day-to-day. And I think that as a school board, our job is oversight and again, accountability. So I look at it through my private experience. So at our stores, the most important thing is the sub that's being made. Then we have the managers, and then we have, we have like directors of operations, and then we have like administrative and office. So if you look at that and you go, how do we do this as a school district? We have the schools and the students. We have the principals that are essentially the managers. Then the director of operations and support staff would be the superintendent and the people in the administration. And then on top of that would be us. And our job is to make sure that we're budgeting properly. We are holding everybody to the same, all the schools to the same standard, and we're going to be holding the superintendent to the standards that we are seeing fit, because we want to make sure that Bedford County can be the best that it can be, and we don't want to settle. So I would say that our role should be that. Again, we should be good stewards of money, and we should understand that every decision we make we shouldn't be flippant in the decisions that we've made. We should really take our time, spend plenty of time to discuss it, and come up with the best possible solution for the county.
Thank you.
Mr. Hill?
What is your vision for education in Bedford County, and how does it support the economy and quality of life in the Bedford community?
Can you repeat that again?
Sure. What is your vision for education in Bedford County, and how does it support the economy and quality of life in the Bedford community?
So, I think that we need to recognize where we stand as far as where we are situated geographically, and what kind of the history has been. I think one of the things for education is that we shouldn't try to put every child in the same box. Certain kids are definitely going to be going to college. Other kids, we want to make sure there's other opportunities for them career-wise. I think that all of that encompasses into education. I think, like, for example, one of the things that we can have is more mentorship programs and things like that for like apprentices. I think that in growing up, my really good friend did not want to go to college. He liked taking things apart and putting things together. So he wanted to become an electrician. So he was able to go to vocational schools, what they called it back then. And so he would go to vocational school, and through VOTEC, he was able to go get an internship as an electrician. So he was able to learn on the job. And so for him, he understood, and this is where, like, as the schools and guidance counselors, they can help. That's their job, to help kind of guide you to things that you like and how to set you up for success. And they said that would be really good for you. Well, now fast forward 25 years later, he's got his own company. He has probably 10 employees that work for him, and they all work in the same area where we grew up and went to school. So that supports the economy. We're going to want to develop everybody from every sector in the economy. We want to have people that go to our schools that become doctors and nurses. We want them to become teachers and educators, but we want them to have business opportunities too, and I think that's an important thing that we need to focus on. I didn't start learning much about business until college, and to be honest with you, by the time I got to college, I was unsure of what I wanted to do. But when I got to college and took electives in business, I said, this is clicking for me. I really wish that opportunity had been presented earlier. So simple things from like understanding how to like balance checkbooks and things like that. I think that's important. But we should teach more entrepreneurial stuff in marketing, because I think that those are other careers that are great options. If we do a really good job educating the kids here, and obviously this community is a great community to grow up in, that when they grow up, they're going to want to stay here. And that means they're going to want to start businesses here, or they're going to want to become teachers here. And just to continue the tradition that we have here, but also bring us to the next level. So that's kind of what I'd like to see.
Ms. Harrison?
Mr. Daniels, thank you for being here. What do you see as major issues facing our school division, our public education in general, And what are some of your thoughts about how we should address these issues?
So, I think that we always, budgeting always becomes an issue in school, so we always have to make some tough decisions. I think that some of the challenges that we have here may be with some of our facilities that we have not being up to speed. I think that there's, we have to look at everything from safety issues in schools not having, like I said, having gyms and things. So I think that we need to make sure that we are addressing that. I think that that's a big thing. The other thing that I think is again going back to preparing our kids for the future, and I actually the way to do that is really to get back to basics, focus on reading, writing, math, science, all of the core subjects, because I think that is huge for us to be able to do. I think we have to look at how we're testing the kids, and not necessarily to try to teach them to pass a test, but to teach them so that they have the knowledge to go into the future. To me, that's some of the biggest things that I think are concerns for me. And I honestly, I really think that that's quite simple. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Daniels, let's see, last question. Please share things you would hope to accomplish should you be appointed to the District 7 seat.
Well, I really didn't have any thoughts about running for anything. I've sat way back there and have observed everybody here since August of this past year. And one of the things that struck me is I really like when something is presented to the board the way that questions are asked. I really like simple questions, and that way I think that you're able to get more direct answers. One of the things sitting there, and I was very proud to be in District 7 and to have Mr. Leamy as our representative. One of the things I'd like to do is I'm representing that area, and I think that I would like to try to continue his legacy and what he brought to the table. I felt like his questions were direct. I don't think he was ever he ever spoke out of turn or put anybody down. I just liked that it was a very simple, direct way of asking questions, and I think that for the parents and everybody that's watching, it made everything very attainable to understand what was going on at the board level. So that would be one of the things to do would be to continue that legacy. The second thing would be to, like I said, I think that we need to make sure that we are trying to attain a certain standard. That's a base standard. So I wanted to get every school to that standard, because you're only as good as your weakest link. So we're only as good as our weakest school. So we have to address any inequalities there, and we have to get those schools up to snuff. Those are two of the areas that are two of the things that I'd like to bring to the table. Again, I think through the business side of it, I can, like I said, I don't have every answer, but I'd like to take that and be able to ask certain questions and then maybe offer fresh perspective on what issues we face as a county and as a school board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniels. That's all 6 questions.
All right.
You are welcome to stay. We're going to interview the other 2. We'll go into closed session. You're welcome to stay to see the vote here in person
Okay.
if you wish, or
Sure.
handle however you want to.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Where are you from in New Jersey?
From Long Island.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I was born in Queens,
Oh, okay.
and then I lived in Lakewood, New Jersey. You know where that is by the shore?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my parents still live there in Tom's River.
Oh.
Yeah, and Tom's River, my brother's in Brick, my sister's in Tom's River, they're all up there.
Oh,
So I go up and get, bagels.
Yeah,
and
there you
good
go.
Italian food. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's very nice, like, not too far away from where I grew up. It's kind of strange.
We might need to put a pencil sharpener out here.
Mine's getting dull.
Everybody's scribbling like crazy.
It's getting awful chilly.
It is getting cold.
Freezing.
Let me turn it up some.
Just a little, I'm really cold. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Smith.
Hello.
There are bottles of water there should you need one. I forgot to tell Mr. Daniels.
Thank you.
We're gonna ask you 6 questions this evening.
Okay.
Every board member is assigned a different question, okay? And we'll start off with Mr. Holbrook.
Thanks for coming.
Yes, sir.
All right. If you are appointed, what past experiences do you believe have prepared you to serve as a school board member, and please be specific?
Be specific. All right. To start off with, I'm a graduate of Bedford County Public Schools, which I think in its own right gives people a sort of a perspective of having gone through the entire system. Be that it gives you perspective on what current teachers we have and their teaching strategies that are in use, current policies that are in use that directly affect students. And I had a third one there. It'll come back to me. But so in the student perspective, so that's a big one. But then also, having been a student, it lets you know other students who are still in it. That's a unique advantage that I have at my age, is I still know several generations of kids that are still in the school system, varying from the elementary, middle, and high school level. And so it's a perspective being able to listen to them and some of the things that they have to say. Other parts of it, I had it there from being a substitute teacher. Being a substitute teacher, I've gotten to go into several of the schools in the county, and that in its own right, since it's been over the course of the last 2 years, which have been during COVID and the lockdowns and everything else in between that we've had to deal with, that's been an experience. Because then you get to see how each school handles things differently. When I was just a student, I had 3 schools that I got to learn from, but then over the course of substitute teaching, it's given the perspective of what works in one school is modified in order to work in another one. So it gives you sort of more of that encompassing perspective of what everything looks like. Another thing is my involvement with Little Town Players in Bedford. Theater is a very important part of Little Town Players, because that's what it is a theater. And so it gives me the perspective of what we hope to achieve in terms of fine arts involvement in the schools. I think it's very important, and I think it's something that we have found throughout the entirety of the last 2 years, is the fine arts offer a large amount of social emotional support for students, and more so now in the recent years, you can be profitable and successful in the areas of fine arts. And so we're really expanding that as a community, as a state, and as a country even, in terms of fine arts opportunities. And so I think the perspective of me being involved with them, being at the community level, gives me insight into what are some areas that we could improve in the school system in order to advance fine arts throughout. I think that's it that I have on that one. I'm sure I'll come up with something halfway down the road and it'll come back at me.
Okay.
Mr. Nelms.
Alright, what issues do you believe the Bedford County School Board needs to address with regard to our academic offerings to students? And is there a program of special interest to you?
To answer the first part, with the program of studies is always relevance. I think that's a key idea that has to be addressed in all programs of studies is the relevance to the student, what's important to them, what do they want to study, some opportunity for choice, relevance to the community at large. You don't want to offer a course that's going to have no benefit to the community, because ultimately that's the goal of public education, is to give students the opportunity to give back to their communities through education. And so it really comes down to relevance in that regard. Programs of study that I care about, I'm a history major and social studies major, so those areas are definitely important to me to make sure that we are giving accurate accounts of history, and especially through our government studies, civic engagement and information. So making sure that we are raising up informed students who are able to make decisions with regards to that. Fine arts, as I've already hit on a little bit, it's important to me. For 4 years, I was at Jefferson Forest High School and I was in their theater program, and you really cannot put a dollar amount on the benefits that you get from a theater experience like that, because it teaches you community, it teaches you the importance of other people listening, communicating with others, the importance of really supporting one another. And it doesn't just go for theater, it goes for band and for choir as well. And it extends even into the sports world. You want your people that you're working with to have your back. And so that is something that all of these develop. And it's a key characteristic that's necessary as you grow up. They're in a soul that I associate now I know that they've got my back. I know that they're going to support me. And that's something that I try to instill in anyone that I come in contact with in the schools. I coach a section of the debate team at JF, and I emphasize, I'm here for you. We're going to support you. Your teammates, they're going to support you in whatever way is possible. And so it's broad, but it's specific to me in that these are the areas that I really care about. And I mean, I'm not a math person. I'm not a science person. I leave it to those who are extremely knowledgeable in those to really put forth emphasis on those. History and social studies, I have the information and I'm passionate about them. And so I try to advocate for them as best I can. And the same with the fine arts.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Hill?
What is a school board member's role and responsibility, and how does that differ from that of the superintendent?
To go with it, to put it in the simple terms that were explained to me from a young age, is policy setters is what the board is. Administrative status goes to the superintendent. Day-to-day operations fall to the superintendent and his staff. While as simply saying what we would like to see be a part of the everyday is the responsibility of the school board. I'm in a government class right now, and it stresses the importance of the legislative body in any organization, because that is the one that gets to stress the values of the people. It gets to promote the ideas of individuals all throughout, all stakeholders. But then the ultimate duty falls to the superintendent to enforce the ideas and administer to the needs of the people, taking into account the policies set forth by the school board.
Ms. Harrison?
Thank you. It's nice to see you, Mr. Smith.
You do.
What is your vision for education in Bedford County, and how does it support the economy and quality of life in the Bedford community?
My vision of education in Bedford County really goes back to relevance is one thing, but it's also expansion of ideas and the presence of intellect throughout Bedford County Public Schools. And that intellect, people like to think that it's book smarts is the definition of intellect, but intellect expanded throughout all areas of the educational system. So intellect doesn't mean you have to ace the history test. Your mechanical skills, your culinary skills, all of these skills are intellects that you have and you display very well. And so all education, not just here in Bedford County, but all across, should be education that is relevant to the students, relevant to the community, and allows for them to express and to give back without putting the stipulation of, yes, we want you to succeed, but we want you to succeed in these specific areas that we've predetermined so well. Instead, it needs to be the chance for a student who doesn't excel in reading, writing, arithmetic, but instead excels in mechanics, engineering, anything around those ideas, giving them the opportunity to succeed. Because that's what it comes down to is your 12 or 13 years that you spend in the public school system, it should be a road, and it has several different turns that you can go down in order to find your destination. That destination is where you help the community, whether it be, all right, you've gone down the road of education in history. Now you give back as a history teacher. You've gone down the road of the culinary arts. So now you get to become a cook in your community, which impacts the economy. It could be down the business route. You open up your own business and become your own proprietor. That gives back to the community. And so when we think of it, it has to be all encompassing and not so defined that we limit where growth can occur. And so it goes back to the fine arts are expanding. We see it more and more every day that our service industry and entertainment industry are increasing. So therefore, our educational system should increase along with it. If there is a market there, if there's an opportunity there, then it is the job of the school system to help fill in by promoting informed individuals who can fill those positions appropriately. And so I hope that answers that question.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Smith? What do you see as major issues facing our school division in public education in general? And what are some of your thoughts about how we should address those issues?
The issues stem back to three things I firmly believe, and it is parents deserve a voice, teachers deserve to teach, and students deserve the best. These are the three truths that I believe should encompass any school system. These are the three truths that should be always kept in mind. I think we live in a time where there's a lot of division among people about who's right, who's wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. And we're so polarized. And people can't seem to see that there is not strictly black and white, but many different shades of gray in between. And so for me, that's one of the key things that needs to be addressed is that you're not my enemy if you have a different view than me. I certainly have never lived my life that way. I'm willing to work with anyone across the board, regardless if I disagree with you or not, because I believe that with conversation and with debate, you can reach something that helps everyone in some way. Not just one group has to get their way all the time. And it should never be that way. That goes against the foundation of everything that we as a society are supposed to believe. And so and I think parents as one group feel that they're not heard as much. I think that's an issue that faces the system. And so it comes down to it that you need to make sure that they are heard. It doesn't mean that everything that is put forward has to be approved or everything that's put forward gets disapproved. What matters is that you allow people the opportunity to speak and you show that you reflect on what they've said. That to me is a critical point. To the second one, teachers deserve to teach. I feel that from my experience, our teachers feel that they're restricted in a way that they weren't if you go back maybe 5-6 years. They feel that they don't have as much opportunity to really do what they want to do because they have to worry so much about outside opinion as much. One teacher told me, she said, I teach people how to think. I don't teach them what to think. And I think that's something that we've gotten away from, is that people believe that teachers have to teach you to think a certain way. When most teachers are going, I don't want to do that. I want you to come to your own determinations, your own beliefs, not follow mine. Because that doesn't matter. What matters is the student, which leads to the third truth of whatever is best for students needs to be done. And now people will say, well, I know exactly what's right for students. And other people go, no, I do. That's where it comes down to, it is nobody has all the answers. If anybody comes forward and says, I have all the answers, then we wouldn't be here. Because someone would have solved everything to the point where you don't need 7 people on a school board. You only need one person because they know it all. So why does anybody else need to be involved? And so that's the key thing, is understanding that we all have different ideas of what education should look like for students. And it goes to motives. Not that they're bad motives, they're legitimate motives. If they weren't legitimate, we wouldn't keep hearing about them. If they were illegitimate, we would say they're crazy. No, we're not going to listen to that idea. But everyone's motives, for the most part, are sincere, and they're trying to express the view. But so what that comes down to is fair consideration and deliberation on what is best for students. And it doesn't just mean trying to figure out what was best for them. That's the key difference. It's not what's best, was best. So 10 years ago, you may have wanted to fix something. That doesn't mean that the present is the time for it, because what that change would have done back then may not be the same effect that it has today. So you always have to remain in the moment when you are trying to change something, and then look to the future to see what the impact is. And so the common thing of what's best for students, it changes, it fluctuates, because our society fluctuates, our people fluctuates. What was good for Bedford County Public Schools 30 years ago very well may not be what it is today. There are things that are always in flux, and it is the job of anybody, elected body, to judge the past, address it in the present, and look to the future. And so that is one of the key things with what's best for students is, and realize you're not going to destroy the child. If the last 2 years have not been able to destroy students, I'm very faithful that a policy decision isn't going to do it either. Because every day when I've gone into the schools, children are still coming, they're still active, they're still trying to learn. And so the spirit is destined to try to learn. And it's the job of anyone to just give it the option of where to learn, how to learn, and let it be so that way they can learn. Don't obstruct it. Don't try to maneuver it to fit any specific little thing that you may feel. It all comes down to deliberation and fair consideration for what is best for students. Because ultimately that's what trumps everything. It is always the student. The student is the most important stakeholder in public education because they're the ones who it affects. They're the ones it affects today. They're the ones that it affects 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 60 years from now when I'm long gone. It's them that matters most. And so hopefully that answers your question, Ms. Kirby.
It does, Mr. Smith. Thank you very much. Dr. Mealy?
Madam Chairman, thank you so much for coming. Please share things you would hope to accomplish should you be appointed to the District 7 seat.
Well, I think a lot of these things I think go in with each question that I've answered so far. And one of them is, I want to work with everyone. And that's something that I've had ever since the beginning of my educational career in kindergarten is I want to work with everyone. I've never been the one to say I'm only going to work with these people or these people. So at a time like this, I feel that's important. Like I said, I don't care if you disagree with me. I'm willing to talk to you. I'm willing to meet with you, hear what you say, because you can persuade me. You can persuade me. I'm willing to be persuaded if there's a good enough argument before me. And so that's one thing that I would like to see change in the whole culture of Bedford County Public Schools is that we're open to ideas, but we're willing to defend our stances, and we're willing to, and that's it, is we're willing to debate them. It doesn't have to be that we all agree, but it just has to be that everyone gets their say, everyone gets their fair say, and then a reasonable solution is found. So that goes to the culture of it, is just openness and understanding of where people are coming from. Other things, and this is one that affects, I think it mainly affects high school students, but I find it important, is the stigma around CTE programs and any occupation that goes away from the four-year college path. It's something that's there, and it just has to be addressed that people who go through other programs to vocational school are equally as important to society. They're no less intelligent, they're no less important, they're no less anything than someone who goes to a four-year school or someone who has a doctorate. We're all people who contribute in a different way to the overall growth of society. And so that's one thing that's important, is showing that we support CTE programs just as much as we support early college, just as much as we support AP classes, pre-AP classes. All of these are held equal because they all have the potential to be equal to the overall growth of society. And so that's a big thing. Fine arts, I'll circle back to them again. I'm a very big believer in the importance of fine arts communities. And so I think really some dedication to them. Some of them really could use the support from administration and from the levels as high as this here to show that we are invested in your programs because you are investing in students who are going to invest in the world. And I think a lot of fine arts communities don't feel that way. They feel that it's sort of them against the world, and they don't get the recognition that they deserve. And so to show support for them and all that they have to offer is a very big, undertaking, but it goes back to what's best for students. It goes back to it. Students want to do fine arts. They want to participate in theater. They want to be in band. They want to be in choir. All of it's important. It's important to them. And so when you go into consideration, it should be important to you when you deliberate. And that goes to, I'm sure it goes back to one of the past questions. We're all adults who sit on the board. There aren't students on the board. They don't get a direct voice as much. So sometimes I feel that it's either all the teachers or it's all the parents, all the business owners, all the politicians. They're the ones talking about education, what it needs to be, and etc. Ask the children. Ask the students. What's their experience like? Are they enjoying it? What are some areas that they would like to see improvement? That's a big thing with it, is just if you're going to have a mindset of compiling all the ideas of all the stakeholders in the county, why leave out the ones that are directly affected by the decisions? They're the ultimate stakeholder. It's their future that is being invested in here in schools. And so that's a little bit of a side tangent, but like I said, I knew I'd come up with something that addressed a question beforehand. But so that is, those are some of the areas that I would love to see improvement. And I mean, other things I feel like everyone should be behind is new books, new textbooks for students, so that way they can have the most up-to-date information. I don't feel that people are against new books for students, so that way they have it, but I'll just say that we need it because I've seen textbooks in science classrooms that are 15, 20 years old and they could use a revamp. History textbooks, a lot of history has happened since 2000 when some of these books were brought forward. So it'd be nice to have books that reflect it, reflect the changes, because 20 years is a big, if you ever study history, 20 years, a lot happens in 20 years that you want to make sure that you're cognizant of and aware of in the history books. And so those are some of the areas that I personally would like to see. But then it's also, I want to hear what the community says that they want. Because I mean, these are just ones that I personally have experienced. I can't experience everything under the sun. There's not enough hours in the day nor enough days in my lifetime to do it. And so that goes back to the importance of the community expressing what they want to the body, so that way you can have that all-encompassing view of everything within your community. And so it's not some sort of we're not a fractured event. It isn't the microcosm of the school board, microcosm of parents, students, teachers. It can't all be separate. It just can't be, because then that leads to dysfunction. It leads to issues. It always has to be cohesive and ingrained together. So that way you benefit everyone. Even if it's not everyone gets 100% of what they want, because I don't know about you all, but I've never gotten 100% of what I want. And it's important to recognize that you can't get 100%, but you take what you can get, because everything is still a step forward. You never go a step backward. You keep moving forward, advancing and increasing your overall benefit. And so I hope that's enough. Those are some areas that I would like to see improved.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Smith, you've answered all 6 questions very well. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
We have one more interview to do, then we're going to go into closed session to discuss. At that point, you're welcome to come out here and wait in the gallery till we come back and make our vote, so that way you can be here. Or you can go and catch us on YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
So the decision is yours.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you all so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank y'all.
sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Whitehorse. Thank you for coming out. There are bottles of water there should you need one during the interview.
Thank you.
There are going to be 6 questions, each board member having a question, and we're going to rotate asking the questions, okay? And where did I put that sheet of paper? Mr. Nelms,
All right.
would you start us off?
Thank you for coming. If you're appointed, what past experiences do you believe have prepared you to serve as a school board member? And please be specific.
So, if appointed, I believe that, of course, number one, being a parent. Being a parent is the most important experience when being a school board member because we are here for the students. And I think too that my experience as an educator obviously greatly helps, and my experience as with my classwork is very helpful as well. But I think my experience in working with the community for years is very, very helpful. I had the opportunity as a principal to work with the communities of Stanton River High School and Liberty High School. I watched communities pull together, and at Stanton River High School in particular, I watched them just literally build the field house through their fundraising and how they all got together and just worked so hard to make that building a reality. And so the power of the community and the power of parents working together was just very important. At Liberty High School, I saw grandparents work, retirees work together. At Liberty High School, there were 27 seniors who were not going to be able to graduate, and retirees came in and they were able to work with students alongside teachers individually and help individualize. And at the end of the year, all those students graduated. And the school made federal accreditation for the first time in the history of that school. And so what was so wonderful about that was you had the retirees, you had the grandparents that were pushing into the school, and that was very special as well. So I think my experience with being a parent, my experience with education, my experience with my studies, and most of all, my experience in working with people and with communities and with other parents, and just being able to see great things done when people work together.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
What issues do you believe the Bedford County School Board needs to address with regard to our academic offerings to students? And is there a program of special interest to you?
So I would really like to see our Career and Technical Center, those classes just enhanced even more. I mentioned Monday night that the classes that, the CTE classes, I had watched them really just be gutted. And I was just so encouraged to see that they had really started to come back. And I would like to see more expansion with those programs. You know, years ago, and this is a lot of years ago, at JF, there used to be agriculture. And so, you know, why don't we have agriculture at JF? Is that something to look into? Would love to see more pathways to jobs through the CTE world. So CTE is a big passion of mine. It's something that I would like to see. I would also love to see, and you know, when you think of academics, a lot of people don't think of the library as being academic, but it's the hub of academics. And the library is where you have the research going on. It's where you have technology going on. It's where you have groups of kids getting together and collaborating and talking, and it reaches into all the disciplines. And so the library is so incredibly important. So we need full-time librarians at the high school level. We need them at the middle school level, and we definitely need them at the elementary level. And I would love to see an elementary school with to have a librarian in every school. I would love to see also art teachers at every school. The fine arts are so important, and it's how students express themselves. And so unfortunately, some of the art positions have been done away with and transitioned into other positions, and it would be great for them to be restored for kids at the elementary level to have those art teachers there in the school. That would be very helpful. Academically, I am, I've been following along with the board meetings by line, and thankful to the technology folks for making that happen, and that's been really good. And as I've been following along, I noticed that the student growth is not where we would want it to be. And I think that's a lot due to the pandemic. I think also it's, because kids have been in front of a computer and for an extended amount of time, and that's really, really tough. And what type of methodology has been used with that? Some of those scores, when you look at third grade math and you see 23% pass rate, when you look at third grade reading and you see 51% pass rate, it's very concerning. So there are learning gaps there. There's learning loss there that really need some attention. And I think we have to look at the methodology that's being used on the computer. One particular, I noticed that we had competency-based specialists, people working with that type of methodology. And that's the type of methodology that has been around for a long time. In fact, I tell this story frequently. When I was a student at Bedford Elementary School, we did not have math teachers. Instead, we had a CART, and it was called the Individualized Mathematics System, IMS program. And so it was a competency-based instructional program. You went to the CART, you pulled out your lesson, and basically the folder taught you. And for 4 years, I never had a math teacher stand up and teach math. And finally, when I got to 7th grade, I remember Roy Monk was the classroom teacher, and he stepped in and he said, "Oh, this is not okay." And he did the brave thing, and he rolled the cart out of the way, and he pulled out the textbooks, and he taught math. But that was like 4 years later. And so, I went on and I caught up with my math. Several didn't. When I did the doctorate and all, I learned how to do the t-test, the ANOVA, the Pearson R's, and all those things. But for many people, it was just so hard to recover from it. So that competency-based instructional program, even in the 70s, that's the same thing, unfortunately, that these computer companies do today on the computer. It's just not in the card anymore. It's on the computer. And I actually have an article that is very fascinating. I'll be glad to send you a link to it. It's from the Federalist. It's a conservative magazine, but it really talks about competencies. And the article is like, why competency-based education will deepen America's education crisis. And it says, in the face of competency-based education, decision makers must consider what education really is and how it is best delivered. Propping students in front of screens and requiring them to scroll through prompts to demonstrate competencies in a linear pattern simply cannot replicate the results of interaction with a good teacher. And lastly, this is what competency-based education leads to. The government establishes the competencies by technology that students cannot question. They may emerge with their badges or certificates, but not with curious minds nurtured by genuine academic knowledge. They'll be reduced to cogs in economic machine. And I'm concerned about maybe the methodology of the competency-based instruction that we've had in here. And so I would love to see us just take this into consideration and maybe look at some other methods that are more proven to have better test results.
Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Hoyer, it's nice to have you with us. What is a school board member's role and responsibility, and how does that differ from that of the superintendent?
So I think the Code of Virginia gives a really good definition, broad. It's more like a mission statement, and it's to provide a free, high-quality education to every student of child age. And I think that's kind of like the overall picture, but within that, when you look at the Code of Virginia, you also look at the duties and the responsibilities. And one of the most important duties, of course, is to hire and evaluate the superintendent. And that word evaluate is kind of scary, I think, for both parties, but actually it doesn't need to be. When you think of evaluation, it should be thought of in a way that it is a way that we are supporting. We are working together to make this division better. And on a board, you have people that are out in the field, in the communities, hearing, listening, and then they can bring those concerns to the chair, to the vice chair, and then those conversations can be had with the superintendent for those, formative moments and say, these are some things that maybe we can work on together. And so I think that interaction with the superintendent, that's the job. Your job is to help the superintendent do the very best job that he or she can do. I think another role of the school board is to have to be able to adopt sound policies that are aligned with the Code of Virginia, that are aligned with the Virginia Department of Education, and that is very, very important. So when you're thinking about policies, the school board is adopting those policies, but then with the superintendent is implementing those policies. The superintendent is in the school doing the work and making sure the work gets done. So that's the hiring piece. The board is hiring the superintendent to implement those policies. And it's very important for a board to not do the superintendent's job. That's the superintendent's job, is to do the managing of things. So the board is to write the policy, this is what we need to do, and then looks at data, looks at information, listening, when sees there's problems through the informal evaluation process, through the formal evaluation process, through dialogue, through discussion, sitting down and talking about what can we do to make things better. Other things that a school board does, when you look at your agenda, there's just lots and lots of tasks down there. You're looking at finances. You as a group can buy property. You deal with personnel. You approve the personnel report. You're approving curriculum things when you are signing off. You are also dealing with discipline of students. You're dealing with discipline of employees. So lots and lots of tasks for a school board to do. I think the most important thing is to not get confused the differences between the board's role and the superintendent's role.
Okay, Dr. Whitehorse. What is your vision for education in Bedford County, and how does it support the economy and quality of life in the Bedford community?
So Bedford is a very special place with so much potential. The land is gorgeous. We've got the beautiful Peaks of Otter. We've got the lake. We've got Thomas Jefferson. We've got so many wonderful things in Bedford, and it is just lots and lots of potential there. But what we also have are the people. And the people of Bedford County are amazing. They're just as beautiful as our scenery, actually. And the people of Bedford, they're special because, if you need something, they will stop what they're doing, and they will be there to help. And so it's just a great place to be. It is a small town atmosphere, which is great. We would love to see our community grow more. The declining enrollment is very concerning in our schools, like I talked about Monday night. And we would like to see that enrollment really, really improve. So we have to work as a board, and we have to work with our community groups to try to figure out what can we do to make our schools better, to make our schools more inviting for our students and parents to want to come to school here. And what can we do with our community agencies to partner and to support each other? I think moving into the future, I think partnerships are key. Partnerships with community agencies, partnerships with also universities, colleges, so that we can share resources and work together is very important. I think in our school system, we want to have a school system that really prepares kids for graduation and jobs moving on. The jobs, the way to prepare students for jobs is not only that they have good knowledge, but they have real life simulations. We give them experiences that directly relate to the jobs. And I think that partnerships with the communities can also help with that. So a vision for the future is providing a quality education for all students, but also partnering with our parents and with our community members.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mealy,
Just one
as soon
second.
as you're done, right?
Thank you. I'm sorry, thank you for coming. What do you see as major issues facing our school division or public education in general? And what are some of your thoughts about how we should address those issues?
So talked about them a little bit already, but I think that the financial issues that I talked about Monday night are just really key. And are you talking about in Bedford County or just in general?
It can be in our school division or public education in general.
So, and I think that the financial issues are really everywhere because of the challenges in the economy. And also we're, declining enrollments are happening not only here but other places. Parents are choosing homeschool, parents are choosing private school. And so, and when one child walks out that door, that's thousands of dollars. And that's really tough. And so I think that public schools have to be able to stay competitive with what's happening with other schools, and so that's very important. I think in education we are seeing that there's a shortage of teachers. It is really hard to hire teachers. It's really hard to retain them, and to complicate the fact that so many are not going into education is the fact that when they're getting out of school and they're graduating, that all these districts are competing for them, and so then they've got one district over here that is saying, oh, we're gonna give them a 15% raise, and then the other district saying, oh, how are we gonna do that? So everybody's like competing for the same pool of teachers. And that's just very, very difficult. That is not only something that is in our district, but it just goes out into, to other districts to where we're competing with each other. And I think you see also the fact of just unity in our country. This is a time where it just seems to be a lot of disunity, and that's really unfortunate. We all need to be standing together and be thinking about what can we agree on, how can we support each other, how can we have respect for each other, how can we think and let other people think, and just be able to grow from maybe our differences. And you go back to Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill when they had differences and they were able to talk about them civilly, and then they go out and play golf. And I think that it's important for us to, in the education world, boards, and just across everywhere, we need to have civility and just be able to really come together in unity to work.
Thank you.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you for coming. Please share things you would hope to accomplish should you be appointed to the District 7 seat.
So, again, some of the things I mentioned Monday night, but just to elaborate on those things, I think special education is something that's very important to me. And I alluded to that because of a family experience. My brother, when he was 9 years old, he couldn't read. And so my parents had to really work hard to fight through the IEP process to get him the services that were needed. And that involved going to a specialty school where they could deal with someone with visual problems, but also dyslexia. And he was able to finally learn to read with special instruction, come back and graduate and move on. I know how important special education is. And from what I'm hearing in the community is that there are many parents out there that are saying, we don't have enough staff. So what can we do? Can we look at those funding streams, and can we look to find ways to put all of our money more towards the front lines. Some people, parents are saying, you know, they're concerned about restraint, they're concerned about calming rooms. What can we do to make them feel more comfortable? Can we have more communication? Can those practices be examined? Can we work with them and show them what the calming rooms look like? Can we talk more about restraint and ensure parents we're not doing it unless there is an absolute emergency? So I think special ed would love to see something there. Again, the career and technical education programs, I'd love to see that built upon. And then it seems like I've already gone over a lot of this, but the art programs and then the library programs and some of those things that I mentioned early on. We want to have a nurse in every school. Particularly, we want to have a nurse in Susie Gibson Science and Technology Center. Of all the schools, that would be one that would be most needed. And it's so important to have that health care for our students. So those are some things that I would love to see worked on, and particularly the finances piece of it, looking at how the money is being appropriated and how it can be possibly redirected to the front lines. And going back to some of the challenges with the finances, with the we talked about the decline in enrollment, but with reversion money going away, we have to plan for that ahead of time. And I'd love to see the financial reports reflect the reversion money, where it's entering, what's that point of entrance, and where is it going, so that we can really get a handle on, okay, so when it goes away, are we going to be ready for it?
Thank you, Dr. Whitehorse. You've answered all six very well. We are going to go into closed session. You are more than welcome to stay and come back in and see the vote live, or you may go home and put your feet up and turn in on YouTube. So the choice is yours. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Chair, move that we go into closed session pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A1 for personnel due to appointments, resignations, assignments, and discipline of special public officers, appointees, and employees of the board, specifically being applicants number 1 through number 3.
I have a motion by Mr. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hairston. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in closed session. Personally, I think it feels good.
What do you have that set at?
69.
Somebody had already bumped it back up.
Yeah, we're trying.
I'm
It's
freezing.
We're
ice.
trying to get it warmer.
Oh, never mind, I got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
I so moved, Ms. Chairman.
Have a motion by Dr. Mealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hairston. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. No opposition. We are out of closed session. Okay, we are here tonight to vote on the appointment. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There it is.
Whereas the Bedford County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and where Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Bedford County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Yes.
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 Okay, now.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
I know, I'm freezing.
We are here tonight to vote on the appointment for District 7. We have been calling out all candidates from public comment time till now in alphabetical order to show no favoritism in any way, shape, or form. So I would like to call for a vote for Christopher Daniels. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ms. Johnson, will you poll the board, please?
Ms. Hairston?
No.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Holbrook?
Yes.
Mrs. Kirby?
Yes.
Dr. Mealy?
No.
Mr. Nelms?
Yes.
The motion passes by majority vote.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, since Mr. Daniels just got the majority vote, then it's settled. So I have a resolution. Whereas Martin Levy was elected from the District 7 of Bedford County to serve a 4-year term on the school board for Bedford County commencing January 1, 2020. And whereas Mr. Levy submitted his resignation as the District 7 representative effective January 31, 2022, thereby creating a vacancy on the Bedford County School Board. And whereas the Circuit Court for Bedford County, Virginia has entered a writ of election for a special election to be held in November 22 to elect a member for the Bedford County School Board representing District 7 to serve the remainder of Mr. Leamy's term, specifically through December 31, 2023. And whereas Code of Virginia annotated Section 24.2-228 requires the school board to appoint a qualified voter of District 7 to serve as the interim representative on the school board until the voters fill the vacancy with a qualified representative by the aforementioned special election. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the school board hereby appoints Christopher Daniels, a qualified voter of District 7, to serve as the appointed interim representative on the Bedford County School Board until the election of a qualified representative at the November 2022 special election. And it will be adopted today's date, and I will sign on behalf of the school board. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Hairston. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Mealy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
Second time.